Guys, seriously, Christmas is Wednesday. Time to think about putting together a list. I'm Charlie Sykes, and Sunday Insight starts right now. Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight, a special edition, our annual Year in Review show. This week we'll look back at the biggest stories of the year. Next Sunday, we'll talk about the people of 2013. 2013 was another tumultuous year. Aaron Rodgers is injured, but just last week the Packers staged a comeback for the ages against the Dallas Cowboys. In Washington, it was a year of gridlock, sequesters, shutdown, and scandals. The IRS was caught targeting Tea Party groups, revelations of a massive spy program by the NSA, and lingering questions about the death of 4 Americans in Benghazi. China landed on the moon. The U.S. Supreme Court strikes down a federal law against gay marriage. 2013 also saw the rollout of Obamacare, a train wreck of epic proportions. The president's promise that if you like your plan, you can keep your plan is named the lie of the year by PolitiFact. Closer to home, Governor Scott Walker rejected the expansion of Medicaid. In Wisconsin, an election for the state Supreme Court preserves a narrow conservative majority. School choice was expanded statewide. Income taxes were cut. And we debated the future of a downtown trolley and the aging Bradley Center. The legislature passed a bill to allow mining in northern Wisconsin, and eco-terrorists targeted the site. A huge multi-million-dollar University of Wisconsin slush fund is uncovered, leading to a tuition freeze and the departure of the system's president. In Milwaukee, the murder rate ticked up, and test scores show one of the worst achievement gaps in the country. We debated Indian mascot names and the expansion of casino gambling. Joining me on our panel this morning, the Milwaukee Community Journal's Mikel Holt, former State Representative Michelle Litjens, political strategist Lynne Debruin, and media trackers Brian Sikma. So let's start with the biggest story. What was the biggest story of the year, nationally and locally? Brian Sikma.
Well, I would say that in Wisconsin, one of the biggest stories of the year was the new mine. As you just mentioned, Charlie, the legislature did pass mine reform legislation, and media trackers pointed out before that legislation passed, the Bad River tribe, one of the leading opponents of the mine, was polluting their own water. Then Right Wisconsin and media trackers later on in July broke the story of eco-terrorists terrorizing the mine site. But I think maybe the national story of the year is the IRS targeting of conservative groups. That really seemed to begin the process of media skepticism of Barack Obama.
Okay, biggest story of the year, Mikel Holt.
Locally and nationally, it's going to have to be Obamacare. You know, we're probably going to wait a few more months to really figure out where this is going, but it has to be Obamacare. I mean, it's altered the whole status quo. It's created a whole new paradigm for America. Opponents are now pushing for it, and those who were pushing for it are, we're sadly...
Okay, locally, biggest story of the year.
I think locally it would actually be Obamacare as well, because the governor actually stepped back, took charge of Obamacare, and he's more or less
biggest story of the year. Biggest story of the year.
Biggest story locally, I think, is the fact that the teachers in Kenosha decided to decertify their union there. They're the 3rd largest teachers organization in the state, and they decided that they wanted the freedom to not belong to that union, and I think that's a fantastic story, and I wish it would have been discussed a little bit more. Nationally, I mean, obviously it's Obamacare, but also I think the fact that Detroit filed for bankruptcy, and I think that's something that we are going to see happen all over the country because so many municipalities are finding themselves in the same situation with their pensions.
Lynne Debruin.
Well, in addition to all the ones that you folks talked about, I think locally a big one was the Kenosha Casino, and even though the decision hasn't been made on that, it touched on a lot of issues that Wisconsinites really care a lot about. The whole jobs issue and Walker not meeting his campaign promise yet, the idea of whether to expand gaming and the Indian contracts, it kind of put it all together. Plus, at the national level, once you get past Obamacare, I think a biggie, especially not only for this year, but in years to come, will be Eric Snowden stealing the 1.7 million classified documents. He's only released a tiny part of those. And as he starts releasing more, we don't know what deals he's made with the Russian government. We don't know whether he's a traitor or a whistleblower or part of both.
Well, I think the biggest story nationally, I agree with others, it has to be Obamacare. It has to be the really the game-changing failure of Obamacare, the discrediting of this program. I think this is going to reset the political dialogue for years, maybe for a generation. Locally, there really you know, compared to 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, we didn't have one big, gigantic story. Obviously, the Kenosha Casino could have been the biggest story of the year. I would say it was the discovery of the UW slush fund, which led to the tuition freeze, which led to the forced resignation of the president of the UW system, and paved the way for a big income tax cut. All right, so Michael Holt, what was the turning point of the year? Can you identify one turning point of the year?
I think it was actually the George Zimmerman case. I think that turned race relations to the negative across the country, and I don't care what anybody says. There's more animosity today among races than any time in history. We're talking about shooting. We were just talking about somebody getting shot in the stomach at Pick and Save or
over the weekend.
Over the weekend. I mean, we've increased the number of shootings. The actual hatred between, now I wouldn't say hatred,
think it's gotten
but
worse?
Yeah, it's
okay,
really
Michelle Litjens, turning point
worse.
of the year.
When the Republicans shut down the government, and the Republicans had, you know, their polls or their numbers in the polls were dropping substantially, and then we watched that happen, and then all of a sudden they had the launch of Obamacare and the exchanges and that complete failure, and how you saw the Republicans start to go up and Obama start to go down, and I thought that was a major shift this year.
Okay, turning point.
Michelle took mine. That's exactly. I mean, when we saw the government shutdown, we thought it was going to be another year of Republican screw-ups. But with the administration screw-ups of their own, the controversies over Benghazi, the IRS, and then the rollout of Obamacare, the whole axis shifted, and all of a sudden people are as fed up with the president as they are with Republicans in the Congress.
Okay, Brian Sikma.
On a much broader scale, I think it was Mohamed Morsi being ousted as Egyptian president in a military coup. I mean, at that point, you had the public demise of the Obama administration's foreign policy. I think that was a big turning point, bigger than what we probably realized sitting here in Wisconsin.
See, it's very rare that you can point out one moment that was the turning point in the year, but I think you can this year, and it was 12:01 a.m. on October 1st when they hit the switch for the Obamacare website, healthcare.gov, and it did not work. Because as Lynne points out, up until then, the entire narrative of the year was, oh, these Republicans have screwed it up, they are toxic, they have destroyed their brand, 2014 could be a huge Democratic year, and then something that, let's be honest about it, nobody really saw coming, that website did not work, and the meltdown since then has really, I think, transformed the political landscape. Now, there was a lot of unfinished business in 2013, and we're not talking about your Christmas shopping. We'll talk about the unfinished business of the year when we come back. Our look back at 2013 continues. George Zimmerman was acquitted in the Trayvon Martin trial. Abortionist Kermit Gosnell is convicted of 3 counts of murder for killing babies born alive in his clinic. The economy shows signs of life. The stock market rose, unemployment dropped to around 7%. Amazon.com announced plans for a major facility in Kenosha and floats the idea of delivering packages by drone. I may need that. So let's talk about the theme of the year. What was 2013 really all about? So start with you, Michael. Finish this sentence. 2013 was the year of what?
I was going to say the year that George Zimmerman get caught with 5 guns and a shotgun, but it has to be Obamacare. And I get the sneaky suspicion that of the panel, I'm the only one sitting here who will have to apply for Obamacare. And I don't know what to expect. And I kind of wish I was in your shoes.
Okay, Michelle Litjens.
2013 was the year of failure of big government. I mean, the list is really endless. We've got Detroit, we've got Illinois, Illinois pensions, Benghazi, IRS scandals, NSA, Obamacare, you just name it. Whenever government just does too much, they seem to fail at it.
Okay, Lynne Debruin.
I think 2013 was the year of President Obama's fall from grace. He started out with the inauguration and high approval ratings, not just as president, but personally as an individual. And now we've got him as part, the public looks at him and says he's the biggest lie of 2013, and his popularity has plummeted.
Okay, Brian Sikma.
Well, I would say 2013 is the year of shattered presidential dreams, visions, and illusions of grandeur, kind of like what Michelle was mentioning, because you had that professional chattering class in Washington, which was all excited at the beginning of the year because we had that inauguration, the second inauguration of President Barack Obama. But then as the year went on, we had the IRS scandal, we had the Benghazi hearings, we had the drones. All these things began compounding, and by the time we get to the end of the year, now we have Obamacare. It was not a good year for the president.
I think we're all pretty much on the same page. I would say that 2013 was the year of disillusionment, and it would be disillusionment with government. You think back to that one weekend in May where the president went and gave a speech at Ohio State University, and this was his "We are government. Do not listen to the people who say to fear government. Don't listen to warnings of tyranny." And then within a couple of weeks, what happened? We had the NSA scandal, we had the IRS scandal, we had all of those things. It was really remarkable because the president understood that this was the year when he was going to push the progressive agenda. But the progressive agenda requires belief and faith in government. And at the end of the year, we have poll numbers that we have never seen before about the number of Americans that actually fear the government or do not trust government. Okay, so what was the biggest item of unfinished business in 2013, Michael Holt?
The unfinished business is Obamacare. I know we're all beating up on Obamacare here.
Well, you are.
By summer, this will be straightened out. And everybody will be applauding.
Yeah.
My word.
Don't count on it. Okay, Michelle.
Requiring a photo ID to vote. The Assembly passed it. This should have been a done deal in the Senate. I don't know why they didn't take it up. I mean, it is facing the court right now, but we need to get that finished.
Lynne Debruin.
Well, nationally, I think completely stalled immigration reform. Remember, before the elections, that was one of the #1 topics that everyone talked about, and it's just completely fizzled out. So that's a biggie.
Brian Sikma.
Well, the Paul Ryan, Patty Murray budget deal just goes through Congress, but it does have a huge portion of unfinished business. They don't raise the federal debt ceiling limits, setting up the seeds of another shutdown or showdown fight. And that could come back to bite Republicans in an election year.
They are not going to be shutting down the government. I think they learned their lesson from that. Actually, when you go through the list of things that is unfinished business, you realize how little actually got accomplished this year. Debt and spending, we didn't do anything about it. The deficit reduction in the Ryan Murray plan is really a rounding error locally. Think about all the things that are on the agenda. The casino is definitely unfinished business. We'll have to get an answer on that sometime in the middle of 2014. The downtown streetcar, unfinished business. I think the legislature drove a stake through its heart, but it still seems to be quivering. What are we going to do with the Bradley Center? That question is unfinished business. And of course, are we ever going to get serious about addressing the educational failure in Milwaukee? You want to talk about this gigantic elephant in the room, the amount of dysfunction, the fact that our kids are testing among the worst in the entire country, and there's almost no reaction about what's happening here in Milwaukee.
Common Core. Nobody's even talking about Common Core.
Well, they are talking about Common Core, but in terms of unfinished business, any serious effort to address the educational failure in Milwaukee, and I think as you go through, this list, you get a sense of either the apathy or the dysfunction or the gridlock that we have at almost all levels of government. So what was the worst call of the year? Think about that for a couple of minutes now, because we're going to share our thoughts when we come back. 2013 was not a good year for unions. The Milwaukee Labor Press folded, and Labor Fest was canceled. In the wake of Act 10, unions report big membership losses. A 3-year-long John Doe investigation ends with no charges against Scott Walker or his top aides, but as the year ends, word of a second John Doe, this one targeting 29 separate conservative organizations. No liberal groups are targeted. We almost went to war with Syria, but then we didn't. We cut a deal with Iran, sort of. So let's continue to hand out the year-end awards. What was the play of the year, the best move, the best call, the best decision, and what was the worst? Brian Sikma.
Well, actually, one of the best decisions this year came from Senator Rand Paul, who in March began to prove that some Republicans on some issues can connect with younger voters. He took to the Senate floor in a spontaneous filibuster of a presidential nominee because of U.S. drone attacks on American civilians. It was maybe not the biggest issue out there, but it captured attention. The worst call of the year was whenever President Barack Obama refused to fire Kathleen Sebelius. She needed to go. Day number 1 of the Obamacare failure, rid his presidency of the baggage.
Lynne Debruin.
Well, the best call of the year was on March 13th when the College of Cardinals elected Pope Francis. That, I think, is going to be the best call for many years to come. The worst national decision was the decision by the Obama administration to roll out Obamacare before the system was ready to go without fully testing it.
Michelle Litjens.
The worst decision of the year, just worst, was when President Obama decided to close the World War II Memorial during the government shutdown. It was ridiculous. It actually cost us money to do that. But the best play of the year is when the World War II veterans decided they were going to make their way through those barricades just like they did in the war.
That was a good one. Michael Holt.
The best call, Congress stood up against Obama, and we didn't bomb Syria. There was no new war to add on to the other 15 wars. The best call locally was, I hate to say it, but benching the Packers quarterback. He wasn't ready, he's still not ready, and you may as well have a losing season so you can probably get some draft picks.
Okay, so the best call of the year was, wait, did you just say the best call of the year was when Congress stood up to Obama? Did you just say that? Okay, I didn't want to miss that.
The microphone is clogged up.
Yeah. Okay, so the best call of the year, I think, was State Representative Dale Koinga, a Republican from Wauwatosa, who decided that he was going to push for a big tax cut in the state of Wisconsin and forced his colleagues to go along with it. He was also the guy who was a part of that CPA caucus that discovered the big UWM slush fund. So he had a pretty good year. The worst call, hey, sorry to tell you, Brian, I think it was Ted Cruz's decision to shut down the government. That was a bad tactic. It was a bad timing. And the only reason it did not really hurt Republicans is because, well, the Democrats screwed up Obamacare even worse. So what is it that took you by surprise this year? We're going to share our thoughts in just a moment. But first, here's your morning news update. The year began with a debate over guns and saw a shooting rampage at the Navy Yard, a bombing at the Boston Marathon, and natural disasters in the Philippines and Vietnam. Michelle Obama visited Watertown to promote water. Get it? Harley threw a huge bash to mark its 110th birthday. The legislature slashed the power and the pay of the Milwaukee County Board and scrapped residency rules. But let's single out one thing that took us by surprise this year, something that you just did not see coming. Let's go around the table one more time, starting with Michael Holt.
I still do not believe that the county exec and our legislators killed the common board, the county board.
Yeah.
Y'all stripped him of all of his power.
Yeah.
They have nothing to do but milk cows now and for another level of government.
Sexually harass aides. Okay, Michelle Litjens.
I am very surprised that after the school shootings from last year and additional shootings this year, that we did not see more gun control laws. I am so proud of Americans that they realize that people kill people, guns don't kill people. But I am surprised that the emotions from last year didn't really create more gun restrictions.
Okay, surprise.
Well, in addition to Michelle's, actually, I wish there would have been some gun control. I think my biggest one, and a lot of ours, was the resignation of Pope Benedict. No pope had resigned for 600 years, and that was
that's
an unheard of. That's an unheard of situation.
Yeah, that's one you can't really argue with because I can guarantee you there was nobody that saw that one coming. You can't run the tape back and go, yes, I definitely think the Pope is going to resign and then we're going to get a guy from Argentina. Those would be big surprises. Now, the election of the Pope himself was also kind of a surprise. Okay, Brian Sikma.
Well, my biggest surprise of the year came just this past week when on Thursday, over 5,500 public employee union members in Wisconsin quit over 70 unions. These unions failed a recertification vote. It's an historic move, and I think it actually could set the stage for future right-to-work reforms in the state.
Okay, now I don't like, given what I do, to admit that I'm completely surprised by something. But, you know, having talked about Obamacare for a long time, I was amazed that they screwed up that website so badly. I mean, honestly, this is the most tech-savvy administration in the history of mankind. It was the website. I just simply assumed there'd be other problems with the policy. But if you would have told me the website won't work, I would have, no, of course the website's going to work. That would be number one. I was also very, very surprised that A&E decided that it was going to suspend Phil Robertson for his comments about gays from Duck Dynasty. I mean, like, first of all, this is their #1 show. Anybody that watches the show would not have been surprised at his comments, so I guess I'm surprised that A&E caved in so quickly. And the other local issue that genuinely surprised me, I am surprised that we didn't get an answer on the Kenosha Casino. I was assuming, along with a lot of other people, that the governor was spring-loaded to reject the Kenosha Casino and that he would have made that decision relatively quickly. The fact that we're sitting here at the end of 2013 with no decision, with a 50-50 chance that that Kenosha Casino might be approved would be is a huge surprise. You know, if we'd gone around the table, which we did, and made predictions, what would the governor do? I think most of the informed members of this panel said that he was going to reject the casino. I mean, were you surprised by that? You thought it was going to go down, didn't you?
Yeah, originally, absolutely. The delay is kind of a shocker to me, and I think it has to do with a lot of issues that came out, including his presidential aspirations to boot.
Now, again, thank you for joining us. And join me for my radio show on News Radio 620 WTMJ from 8:30 until noon. We are going to be back next week with another Year in Review show next Sunday morning, 2013, the People of the Year. Have a great week.